Hello, it's Lauren with Wearing History. Today I'm going to talk about this skirt pattern. This is the Leslie skirt. It's new for 2022, and if you're watching this later, it's already kind of a hit, so I hope that you guys really enjoy sewing this one. Just a couple of things I want to talk to you about. This is what it looks like on the internet. So you will find a copy like this in my Etsy store and on my website. There is a button-down front version, which is what I've made both of my mock-ups as, and then there's a version that has a plain front and has a zip at the side. This pattern was based on a public domain original from the 1950s, and it has original vintage 1950s sewing instructions. So there's a few extra tips for watch points for me. If you're new to vintage sewing, the 1950s is a great time period to start with because the instructions are very similar to sewing instructions that we have today. Like I said, there is a short and a long version. This one, which has no buttons down the front, can also be made in the shorter version. Now, the short version on the cover versus the length in actuality is quite different. The real skirt hits probably mid-calf, so it's probably 3/4 length. So if you want the 1950s look like this, looks like it's just below the knee, you're going to need to bring up your length a little bit. Now, because this is a vintage pattern originally, it was available in very small sizes. It was, I think, 22-inch to 30-inch waist, and that was the top of the line. That's as far as this pattern went. So for my original version, which is this one, which is based off of the 1950s shapes of this pattern, I had it go from a 24-inch waist to a 40-inch waist because I thought that would give us a lot more variety and more people would be able to enjoy the pattern. Now, when this came out, I did not expect it to be a hit, but it was on Instagram. So hello to all my new followers that have found me through this skirt pattern. And then I got requests to do it in an extended size range. And I've only done this once before for the smooth sailing pattern, which is the blouse and the pants. But because it was so popular right off the bat, I decided to go for it, and we have the extended size version. This is drafted by me. It's adapted from this, but it is redrafted to a redefined waist shape. It has a redrafted back waistband, and it has other alterations that made it more accessible to more sizes. And because of that, this one can go from 32-inch to 48-inch waist. So this dress form that it's based on is a 38, and this mock-up is exactly the size 38. Now this one is a 28-inch waist. This version is actually a 32-inch waist because it's for me. So I've pinned it at the back a little bit. But you can see that the waist shapes are very similar, but they're not exactly the same. The reason why is because when this waist shape got transferred to this dress form, it was right under the bust. So I redrafted it to have the same aesthetic as the original, but be more flattering. So if you are between sizes and don't know which one to pick, because this one goes to 40, this one goes from 32 to 48, so there's quite an overlap between 32 and 40-inch waist. This one, if you want the original period shape, will have a waistband that is angled like this at the back. And the reason they did that was because they were using waist cinchers in this time period. So if you are a person that likes to do corsetry, you may want to stick with this version if you're between sizes. If you have a more modern waist shape, which is more like this, then you might want to try this version. This one also has more hip ease than this version. I drafted it to have more hip. Now, because of the cut of the skirt, you can see it's quite voluminous. There is extra space for a variety of hip shapes. So it may not be as much as a concern with this pattern, except with the back. So let me show you the back. And you can see the flare to this waist shape already right here. But it is flat on the back. It's got a center back seam. There are no darts here. So if you have more waist curve or more butt curve, you may want this version here. So let me pin her, and I'll turn the other girl around. So you can see the shape of her, and she has quite a lot of flare, so if you have a larger hip, it actually is going to work out just fine for you with this pattern. Of course, always make a mock-up and test it out first. The back waist of this one is more scooped because it allows for more ease over the butt too, so that's something to keep in mind. Now you can see that this does have a little bit ease. I made it off of the pattern I drafted, but for some reason it got a little more ease. I'm not sure if it was my cutting or what, but you may want to test that out in your mock-up as well. Of course, it's more comfortable that way. I have heard concerns about the waist flopping down. I'll tell you that I don't really have an issue. I haven't worn mine out yet, but on the dress forms, I've been messing with them and I don't get any like weirdness going on or anything. It depends on your fitting. So if you want this to not flop down, you will want to make it nicely fitted across your stomach. But it's like going to be from your waist up a little bit. So you're going to make this fit nice and flush, but not too tight, because if it's too tight, it's going to tend to want to like crunch downward. And likewise, if it's too big, then it will want to flop forward. So you're going to pay special attention to your side seams to make sure that that is nicely fitted and give enough ease so that you can have your interfacing and facing levels. Now, on this version, because the fabric is very soft, when I originally bought this fabric, it wasn't soft, but I pre-washed it. So this one is a middleweight linen, which acts like a midweight linen usually would. This is a lightweight denim, so it's got the denim weave, but it's more like a shirting weight, which I did not expect. I bought it in mail order. So for this option, I decided to do 2 layers of interfacing. I interfaced this whole front panel on both sides, and then I also interfaced the top of the inside facing piece. So it's faced all the way down the front, but I just faced it at the waistline. And then I actually added some short boning right here, a little boning piece right here, and then a little boning piece right here, just at the waistline. And I have a tutorial hack that you can use if that's an option for you. If you're worried about your waistband flopping down, the boning really helps make it stand up. You could also add boning at the side seams here, but the original period pattern did not call for boning. It only called for interfacing, sewn in interfacing, and it would have been like kind of like a midweight cotton in the day, so it wasn't hugely interfaced. But if you were concerned about that, you may want a heavier interfacing. I did not use Hymo in mine because I want them to be machine washable, but if you are having yours dry cleaned, you may want to use Hymo or hair canvas for the inside. That'll give it nice stability as well. Otherwise, I just used fusible tricot interfacing, which is totally not period correct, but I don't care because it's easy. So I think that's about it with these skirts. Oh, one more thing. This one has machine buttonholes, and this one has bias-bound buttonholes and covered buttons. There are tutorials for covered buttons and bias-bound buttonholes on my YouTube channel. You can click through and find those. Otherwise, stay tuned because I will have some tutorials coming up for these 2 patterns. They're very straightforward. I don't think you guys will have a lot of issues, but there's a hack for the boning, and then I have a video on how to set in this curved seam, because this does have quite a drastic curve to it, especially in this version of the pattern. Hope that helps. I really hope you enjoy sewing this pattern. Make sure you tag me on Instagram if you make them, or feel free to send a message to me on Etsy and show me your makes if you're not on social media. Thank you and happy sewing.